Hey, Mike, I've got a riddle for you. Okay,
Oh.
what do bats, beavers, burnout, and Ealing have in common?
Bats, beavers, burnout, and Ealing.
Yeah.
No idea.
Sean McCormack.
Hi, I'm Mike Brampton.
And my name is Julian Howe.
Welcome to Veterinary Ramblings.
We interrupt the show for an important announcement.
Hello there, dedicated listeners. We just want to take a little time outside the show because we've got something very exciting to share with you.
We have exclusive Veterinary Ramblings merchandise available now. That includes t-shirts, mugs, posters, and prints.
Now, personally, I think my favourite is our t-shirt with a hilarious diagram of cat anatomy, which has been revised to include their sandpaper tongues and treat-detecting ears.
Yeah, and if you'd like to show your support for the show, head over to veterinaryramblings.com and select either the merch button for a one-off purchase through our T-Mill store or select Become a Patron.
I know you're worried about this, so let me reassure you. Everything in our T-Mill store is fully sustainable, carbon neutral, and shipped in plastic-free packaging. By making a one-off purchase, you'll help us plant more trees, save water, and reduce carbon emissions.
If you want to support us further, become a Patreon to receive items you cannot get through one-off purchasing, a shout out on the show, and exclusive Veterinary Ramblings content.
And please, every single purchase made will really help us to keep on interviewing amazing guests. But if nothing else, we really appreciate you tuning in.
Now,
on
with the show. Here's Sean.
Hey,
Hello.
Sean.
How are you doing?
Tell me, Sean, because you do real TV and presenting stuff, don't you?
A few little bits along the way, yeah.
Okay, yeah, but you're beginning to carve your niche in that area.
Yeah, hopefully. I do a podcast as well, and I just
And I know
keep it very informal.
We've been watching it and listening to it. Goshawks in Germany.
Yes.
And dead
Berlin.
hedgehogs.
Dead hedgehogs. What was that one? Oh, that's
That
Instagram.
was in-
rather than podcast, yeah.
That was in the allotment.
It was.
It was. And now my mother-in-law lives in Ealing, and
I thought you were going to say your mother-in-law lives in an allotment then.
she pretty much does. She loves her allotment. With little parakeets flying over. You've got the
Oh, yeah, loads of them.
Ealing, yeah. So I must tell her about the wildlife project, which you're going to tell us about in a minute. But at the moment, I think Mike and I are both bursting to know. What's your favourite bread?
My favourite bread. It's got to be Irish soda bread, hasn't it?
It's got to be.
Oh, has it?
It's got to be.
Yeah, I'd be
Lovely.
killed. I wouldn't be allowed home if I didn't say that.
Yeah. Well, you've only got half an hour to make a loaf of bread. That's the one to go for, isn't it?
Okay, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to set me a challenge there while I was on a podcast to bake a loaf of bread.
We've dropped that section.
Okay.
Yeah, it didn't work.
It's getting in the way of conversation, was it?
Well, the sourdough, we're 72 hours into it, thinking, Christ,
Yeah.
come on.
Proving again.
Yeah, and then we'd find out that I hadn't set the recording button on or something stupid like that. And
Fantastic. All over again.
stuff.
No good.
That's brilliant stuff. So where's this subtle Irish lilt from then, John?
So I'm a bit of a mixed bag. Some would call me a traveller, although I'm not. I'm not a gypsy traveller. But I was born in Kilkenny. So both my parents are from there, which is like Midlands. And then we moved around quite a bit with Dad's job. Grew up then from the age I was 12 in County Kildare, kind of Dublin border.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a neutral Irish accent. Kind of soft, I suppose.
That's lovely. That's lovely.
I also moved over here when I was 18 and then moved back to do vet school and then moved back here again. So I've actually been more time in the UK as an adult than at home. So
Glad you haven't lost the accent.
No, we couldn't do that.
Sorry, shouldn't be saying we couldn't be doing that.
Yeah, we couldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
We couldn't be doing it. Not losing that accent. It's nice. So it's a young Terry Wogan, if you don't mind me saying so, Sean.
Do you think?
Yeah.
That's our tell. It's a comforting. It's a comforting voice.
Good,
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah, do. Let's talk about you, Sean. You've just come back from Slovenia.
I have, yeah. I was there
What were you
for a
doing
week.
there?
Have you been?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing country. I went with a friend who's on a bit of a career break. He's just become fun employed. between jobs, so he doesn't know what he's doing next. So he said, "Do you want to go on a nature holiday, chill out, get away for a week in Europe?" And I was like, "Yep, sign me up."
Yeah.
So we booked a chalet in the Slovenian Alps, and I brought my camera and just got off grid and hiked and swam in lakes and spent some time with my camera, which I don't get time to do. So yeah, really good.
It's good, isn't it?
Try and get my eye in again and just that slow down, find my own Zen state again. And yeah, I've come back very refreshed, but then I came back to, Monday playing catch up and going, where do I start on this to-do list?
That's not as much fun, is it?
So what does Sean's to-do list look like on a Monday morning then? Because I've been trying to work out exactly what you're doing and how you're paying your mortgage.
Yeah, well, I'm paying my mortgage with an industry vet job. So I work as head vet for tails.com. So we're a pet nutrition company online that provides bespoke diets for dogs and now cats as well, with a sister company. So we started in about 2014. I joined them early 2016 after 6 years in clinics and a little bit of burnout, if I'm honest, and a bit of a career reflection and wondering what to do next. And yeah, I joined them very early in the journey, and we've been growing ever since. So that's the kind of 9 to 5, 9 days a fortnight. I do that. That's the bread and butter mortgage paying job.
Right.
And one of the reasons I left clinics as well is to kind of get a little bit more of a work-life balance and get some free time to do the other things that I'm really passionate about, which is mainly around nature and wildlife conservation.
Interesting.
And have you always been a nature and wildlife conservational conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think like you talk to any conservationist, and I think even a lot of vets will have this story as well of like from the time they were a very, very small child being just fascinated with nature. And for me, it was everything. It was like how it all interacted with each other. It wasn't just animals and it wasn't just pets. It was definitely bugs under rocks and plants and flowers and how everything interacted and things like that.
And that's the thing, once you've got your eye in, life is everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, there's just always something to discover. I mean, my mum says now, like, she remembers I was the 4th of 5 kids, and she remembers being like, "Oh my God, what's he doing?" Because I was just age 2, like turning over massive rocks the same size as me and looking at what's under them and bringing creepy crawlies into the house and freaking her out and all sorts. So yeah, it was always there. I think it came from my grandparents probably. They were into kind of countryside and gardening and nature and stuff as well. So
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, brilliant.
So as a 2-year-old, you started turning over rocks and starting to see what was under there. So where did your career path and your qualification path start? Yeah,
so that's an interesting story. I think like there's elements of not regret, but there's definitely elements of like kind of reflection on did I choose the right career path, and how did it all work out? I think with that, like, I don't know, intense love or obsession or interest in nature and animals and ecosystems and things, I think most adults that I met as a kid were like, "How do you know so much about this?" Or they'd ask me questions and I'd come out with something and they're just like, "He's like a little encyclopedia of knowledge on birds or bugs or whatever it was." And they always asked me the same question was, "What are you going to be when you grow up?" And I just thought early on, well, what is a job that I could work with animals and nature? And I thought, I'm going to be a vet or I'm going to be a zookeeper.
Okay.
And I quickly realized that maybe keeping animals in a zoo wasn't going to stimulate me too much, and I heard then from nearly every adult when I said I might be a vet or I want to be a vet, they said, "That's very difficult. That's really competitive, or you won't get into veterinary medicine, or, oh, it's a very tricky job to get into and stuff." So I think
no one ever says, "Oh, good on you, well done. Gosh, what can we do to help?" It's always, "Oh, you never get in there."
Yeah. So I kind of got that reaction a lot, and I suppose being, having a little stubborn streak maybe, or a very streak. Yeah. I was like, "I'll see your challenge." And kind of thought, well, look, that's the path I want. That's it. And I was just very, very kind of single-minded and focused on that. I guess you guys, might be the same.
So the more people said no, the more you said, right, that's what we're doing.
Yeah,
kind of. And then, I kind of, I suppose, was quite good and quite academic at school up to a certain point. But vet school in Ireland is extremely difficult to get into. There's only one vet school. There's only 70 odd 60, 70 places at a time per year when I was applying. And I just missed out on getting in. So I also knew I needed chemistry, and I had to do a year after my normal kind of A-level studies, kind of leaving cert equivalent. And I just decided to do a certificate in, what was it? I can't remember the name of the certificate now, but it was a fairly kind of basic level certificate in animal care or veterinary assistant, something like that, while I did chemistry at night. So I basically had the choice between doing a straight science degree as an undergrad before I applied for veterinary as graduate, or to do an animal science degree, which had kind of options in going down the livestock production, animal production kind of route, or going down habitat and species conservation route. So I chose animal science, moved to Essex when I was 18, did that degree for 3 years, and then applied to do veterinary medicine at UCD and moved back home to Dublin to do that. So a little bit kind of long-winded, I suppose, but getting that kind of, I guess, education in kind of more ecology, species conservation, countryside management, things like that, it really, really piqued my interest, and it didn't kind of take me off the veterinary path. But I definitely arrived at vet school in UCD, 3-4 years older than most of the first years, with a bit more of a rounded kind of view. And I definitely got away with my anatomy and physiology lectures and dissections for the first year or two, because I'd already done them all, which I wouldn't have done in Ireland. So I had a little bit of time, I guess, and a little bit more kind of thinking space, and a little bit of a more rounded kind of view of like what the veterinary degree was and what you could do with it after you qualified. It didn't just have to be the bog standard, what my 5-year-old self thought, which I'm going to help animals by working in a clinic and making people's pets better.
Right.
So yeah, it just lots of things happened organically, and I kind of knew, and I wanted to come back at some point to have more time with wider animal health, wider global health, wider kind of environmental health than just, again, being in a clinic for the rest of my career, treating one-on-one client relationship, one-on-one pet vet relationship. Ended up doing it for 6 years and just getting a little bit phased out, and this isn't my passion. This isn't something I can do for the rest of my career,
You mentioned a bit of burnout as a kind of throwaway line almost, but did you feel that was where you'd ended up? There was a bit of compassion burnout or general fatigue?
Yeah. I don't make light of that at all. And I've talked very honestly and openly about that in the past, and certainly can again. I went through a very, very difficult time. And I know you've had other vets and young vets on who are at that stage in their careers now, where they're thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do next, and I'm having problems.
It's a very common theme, more so I think in sort of post-COVID state.
I can't believe, I don't believe I would have lasted as long had I graduated, 5 years ago instead of 10, 12 years ago when I did. But yeah, I went through a pretty tough time. I was in my third practice. It was a good practice. It was a good job. I had pretty good conditions. I had a 4-day week, and I was only on call 1 weeknight. All our on call went at weekends to another practice, and I had a good team. I was pretty happy. There were some prospects maybe later on to kind of buy in and things like that. But I did it for 3 years, and I was treating mainly domestic pets, but also exotic pets was my main interest, because that gave me the breadth of species. And it's kind of, with exotic pets, you are actually as much a kind of a naturalist as a clinician, because I'd be looking at birds and reptiles and telling their owners, this is how it lives in the wild, and this is how you're not meeting its needs, and this is how its diet and its lighting and its heating and things need to actually match up with the kind of ecosystem.
See how this perspex 2-foot tank doesn't quite match the lower.
Doesn't quite make it. Yeah. So I was kind of using that, and then I think part of the reason, there's lots of reasons. Part of the reason I kind of became a bit jaded with that whole side of veterinary medicine was I just felt I wasn't contributing or making a difference. I was just kind of firefighting, and I was also possibly at times allowing it to happen or glamorizing it a little bit. I was using social media. It was, I'll give my age away, it was before Instagram, but I was like the vets young vets using Instagram now. I was using Twitter for that reason, and I was exotic pet vet on Twitter, and I was posting my cases and people were like, "Oh my God, that's so cool. You've like spayed a leopard gecko today." And I was just like, actually, after a couple of years of doing that, I was like, I'm not actually solving any problems here. I might be solving a single problem for that single leopard gecko or chameleon that came in when 20 others this week in my vicinity kind of slowly wasted away in a little tank somewhere. And I just felt, actually, this is not my purpose. This isn't like where I'm going to find joy for the rest of my life.
So, okay, right. Well, let's get back into it then. I mean, it strikes me as an interesting thing. You're being very open and honest about this whole time in your life, but you're a personable character. You're a good-looking bloke. You got this lovely, soft Irish lilt. The whole world was at your fingertips, essentially.
Yeah, but I wasn't happy, and I had done something that I had worked my entire life for, and I'd worked very hard for, and I'd made sacrifices for because I went the long way around, and I actually ended up feeling quite bitter, that shit, it hasn't worked out.
Okay.
I don't actually like this day-to-day job, and what am I going to do next? I felt quite trapped. I felt quite, as I said, with the kind of animal welfare side of things. That I felt I was almost not being hypocritical, but again, facilitating a repetitive cycle of animal welfare and animal ethics, things that I didn't agree with. I studied a lot of animal welfare and ethics kind of science in my undergrad degree and really, really liked that, but was quite a kind of, I guess, deep thinker on that. And, even pedigree dog breeds, I talk about that a lot over the years on my social media and things and campaign on certain issues. And I just felt like, number one, there's some ethical issues here that I just feel like I'm part of and I'm not solving. Number two, I think that the industry and the way veterinary medicine is set up, it's difficult. It is a kind of socially isolating job, and I'm quite a sociable person, and I felt like, actually, I looked kind of from an outside perspective and said, I've been in this room with no windows, talking to random strangers or people I kind of vaguely superficially know in 10-minute consultations for the last 3 years. And I don't have, on certain days, on my consultation days, I don't have a huge amount of access to my teammates who are out there working together. And I'm in there, with this cycle of people coming through, and it's a constant stream of, I have this problem, solve it. I have this problem, solve it. And yeah, that I think contributed to burnout, definitely. Social isolation as well. I moved to London. I'm Irish. I didn't have huge amount of friends here, kind of, but I did move for the friends that I had, where I chose to live. But like the difference between the people of my age group who weren't vets, who were most of my friends, and any of the vets I knew from my first job, my second job, that were young and recent graduates, I just saw all of my vet friends really, really struggling with, the hours, the commitment, the tiredness, the feeling of fulfillment with getting home after, a long day and going in the next day and just kind of not having a life outside of work. Or even if you had the time for it, you were just absolutely exhausted, mentally and physically. So it was just all these things added up, and I just thought, I'm not really enjoying this. I do want to know where to go next. And in the end, it was stomach problems that kind of tipped me over the edge. I had bad stomach. I was having like IBS flare-ups. I was kind of getting stomach cramps and things. And I went to the doctor for that, and I ended up crying in the doctor's office. And the doctor was like, this isn't your stomach, this is your head. Like there's you're very stressed. I can tell, things are getting on top of you. We're going to sign you off for 2 weeks, and we're going to figure out a plan. And the plan that I got was contacting VetLife and just saying, I haven't been happy for quite a while. I've been sort of keeping it to myself because I don't want to admit to myself, let alone my colleagues or my boss or, my team, that I'm not enjoying this anymore. And I kind of covered it up a little bit in that, my stomach's a bit dodgy this week, and I'm having pains, and I'm going to go to the doctor on Thursday about that. But I wasn't talking to anyone about, actually, here's where I'm really hurting, and here's where I'm really struggling,
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was until it put you in the doctor's office, and you'd got a doctor that was using the ears and less of the stethoscope.
Yeah,
Actually listening
and
to what
you
you're
know,
saying.
I'm just trying to think what was the trigger for that. It was a doctor that said, I think he said something along the lines of, I understand how it is to be a, recent medical graduate and things. Now I was 6 years out, so I wasn't that recent. I was, dare I say, I was a pretty good vet. I had very happy clients. My teammates were very happy with me and things. But I was just at that tipping point, I guess. And he said, "How are things at work? How is it going at work? Like, how are you?" I think he said something like, "Has anything happened at work?" And I said, "This week I came like this close to telling a client to off, And he, and I've come close before, but this time it was like I'm gonna like absolutely lose my composure here and tell them,
It would be nice to be allowed to do that just once a week, wouldn't it?
I know, once a month would have been fine, like blow off steam a little bit. But yeah, that was the thing. And then once I said that and kind of he broke down that barrier, and I started crying. He's like, "There's more going on here than just your stomach."
Yeah.
Interesting.
There's still this huge stigma, isn't there? Barrier to admitting that we're struggling. It is a hugely stressful job, and as you say, despite the fact that we're often nominally in groups, there are a lot of vets, a lot of nurses, a lot of receptionists. Most of the time we're working alone, and dealing with really, really quite emotional cases alone. There isn't the time to go out and say, I felt so upset about that last case. I felt I wanted to do this here and wanted to do that. There was this.
No, because you've got to get back in there and carry on.
Yeah,
I've got 3 more people waiting in the waiting room
with their new puppy, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes. He's lovely. He's a Shar-Pei. He's great. I paid 10,000 for him.
Yeah. And then you're like, he's going to cause you immense pain.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I mean, it's a difficult job just up here trying to like keep 20 cases in your head per day and work out what's best for them and what are the next steps and have I communicated with that client on this? And, you're juggling a lot in veterinary medicine all the time.
I think, is there not also an element there when you're facing all of this that you feel a guilt that you're letting your team down, you're letting your teammates down, the rest of the crew, as well as potentially the clients? I mean,
can't take a day off because look at the amount of work you put on everyone else. If you take a day off, signed off for 2 weeks. God, dear.
I said that. I mean, I battled my GP on that. I said, I can't just take 2 weeks off. I can't not go into work tomorrow. And he was like, yes, you can. If you broke your leg today, you wouldn't be in the surgical suite tomorrow, would you? And I was like, no. He said, you're not okay. You're not well. You need some time to think about things and some distance and da-da-da. And I felt so guilty. I can't even remember. I think I was quite, I don't know. I was so in my head and so kind of distraught at that time. I don't even remember like who I rang or was it my boss, was the practice manager? What did I say? I definitely know I felt a bit of shame and embarrassment about it and like, ooh. And I was put on my GP as insisted, it was like trying to take it out of my control. Absolutely.
Really, we should be far more open about this. We should be able to say at any stage during the working day, I can't see the next one. I need to have half an hour. I just need to do something. I need to go and chat with some friends.
What veterinary practice has the kind of the room in their staff and their team and their day and their schedule, like things are just getting booked on top of other bookings, and one person has to go home to look after their kid that's sick at school, the rest of you pick up the slack. Like there's not the wiggle room to be able
really
to
isn't
give people that. And I think I think you had Chris on recently, Chris Wilson. He talked about resilience, didn't he?
Yeah,
he did.
Right.
Yeah.
And he said like we are an industry that's constantly kind of recruiting for, or seems to be recruiting for, and telling people within the workforce, you just need to be more resilient. The industry is broken. Like it's not which came first, chicken or egg,
No, I think you're right. One always remembers the halcyon days of one's youth, don't they? But 25 years, 26 years ago when I qualified, the days were easier. The nights were easier too, but the days were easier. okay, I was in a mixed practice, and they are almost always, I don't know if they are now, but they were almost always overstaffed because there had to be some flexibility because you might be called out for a calving or for a colic. So that you had to have some spare people on hand. But they were a lot less stressful. Now, whether that was because I was younger and I was able to cope.
You're just getting old. You're just getting old and tired.
You're forgetting all the bad stuff.
old, tired, and cranky.
Yeah, and you're forgetting the bad stuff. Quite right, Sean. I think that's what it is.
It's like rose-tinted glasses.
Rose-tinted glasses of the history. I mean, I've done a number of things in my career, and there's no question. The older I get, the faster I was. You know,
I mean, I look back at my first job, and I worked with one of your former podcast guests as well, Mark Hedberg.
Oh, right.
Yeah, brilliant.
Quite a character. But yeah, we worked in a mixed practice down in Kent, and I look back on it now, and there was some crazy positions we were thrown into, and there was some responsibilities on us as new grads that I'm like, I don't know if I'd be comfortable putting a new grad in that now, but I thrived on it. So, I loved it. I do look back on it with fondness. I definitely had times where I was like, damn it, I got the short straw. I had to go and dissect a horse for a post-mortem examination before I got fed to the lions at a zoo on New Year's Eve before I could get to London to party with my friends. So, there's stories there that are brilliant, but like there was times where I was very stressed and there was pressure on and things. But I think, again, we did have capacity. We had a 7-vet team. You had backup, and I think it was the kind of combination of the isolation part and the years of experience of like being 6 years out and kind of getting that 6 or 7 year itch that seems to come with any kind of job or career decision. You start to wonder, and I think I just got a bit jaded with it, and I also got a bit clinically bored with it. And I thought, shall I become a specialist? Shall I become an exotic specialist? And I thought, no, it's the exact same dynamic, but there's more money on the table and there's more at stake if that patient dies if I'm a specialist. So I wanted out, and I just started looking at other things.
That's a gutsy move to take. I mean, that's illness in effect forced your hand a little bit and made you stop. That was your up against the buffers, stop and reflect moment, wasn't it? What would your advice be to somebody now? I mean, you've come through that. You've started carving niches in other areas and earning your keep in different ways, still associated and using all of your skills and knowledge. But what would your advice be to somebody who potentially is heading for that crash?
Yeah, I think the advice starts with before they're heading for that crash, and just kind of getting in with kind of vet students or early grads and just saying, like, your career as you think of it and how it's going to go when you're age 5, 15, 25 can go completely different directions, and that's fine. We kind of as a group of people, we're very high achievers. We're very hard on ourselves. We're quite serious people at times, and kind of lose the kind of joyful spontaneity that we might have had before we got into veterinary medicine and became serious professionals. I think actually
not all of us.
maybe not in this room. Maybe not in this gathering, which is good. You've hung on to it and you're making something different of it now. But we do tend to just take ourselves very, very seriously.
We do.
Take our career
we take
seriously.
failure of any sort.
Anything.
Very, very seriously, much more seriously.
Yeah. So I would say, just be open-minded that actually, if you're not having a good time, if you don't like X practice, then maybe Y practice might be good, but maybe Z practice might be even better, or absolutely seal the deal that no, this is not for you. And that's also fine. And the thing is that, over the last few years, and certainly since I left clinical practice and things, I've met so many vets who are doing so many different things that it's really opened my eyes. If I could go back and talk to me, then.
Hang on, that was my question.
Yeah, hey,
go on.
You nicked the question I always ask.
Come on then, Sean. If you could go back and talk to you then, please do. Carry on.
It would be that, thanks. Sorry about that. I think it would be that this is fine. This is just a little blip in your career where you feel like there's a stumbling block that you can't get over, or that there's not many options on the other side, but there are actually tons of options on the other side. And I think the main barrier, that main stumbling block for me was coming from within me of like, am I a failure, or have I thrown away all those years of education, or that real serious grit, determination, and stubbornness that I had since I was a 5-year-old child, being told, oh, it's very difficult to be a vet. Have I just done that like at the detriment of myself? And the second thing was, am I letting everyone down by now, admitting that maybe it's not for me? And I felt pressure. It wasn't there. My parents wanted me to be happy above all else, but I felt the pressure of like, they've supported me through college and university, and they've supported my move to the UK to study a degree that wasn't available in Ireland. I worked my way through kind of my undergrad and my vet school as well, my own business and things, but I got financial support from them, and I got support from them, and I felt like, if I go to them now and say what I thought I was doing was, I don't want to be a vet anymore, or I can't be a vet anymore. But actually what I realize, and what I'd say to that person now, is you're still going to be a vet, and you're just going to do different things with it than standing in a consultation room with no windows talking to the rich housewives of Richmond and their pampered pooches for the rest of your career. That's not what you want to do. So cool, move on, find other things.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? You are still using your veterinary knowledge, your veterinary experience, because veterinary experience isn't just what's inside a liver, it's what's inside the heads of people who look after animals or don't look after animals. What's inside the heads of everyone you see, everyone you come into contact with through your days as a consulting vet. And we enrich our lives, don't we? We see other points of view, other ways of living.
Yeah, totally. And it's also thinking bigger picture. It's like, why is the anatomy or physiology of this species designed like that? And what is evolution doing there? And you have a better understanding of nature and natural systems and the order of things, because you've got an analytical mind. You've been trained to figure out problems and ask the right questions and things like that. So it opens up a world of possibilities, I think. And that's what I would say to kind of people who are struggling currently. And it's like, don't think that you're trapped. You're not. You can actually explore, and you can do lots with that degree.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to. Don't be afraid to think, actually, this is my life, and I want to do something different with it.
There's no shame in getting to a place where you're unhappy and making changes. It can only be a positive thing,
So that build up to talking to your folks about it, your parents, that must have put a bit of pressure on you as well. I'm wondering what they were going to say, and they turned around and they said, "Well, we've known that for the last few years, and we're glad you've come to this conclusion."
Interesting now, because you're triggering some memories now. They're not memories. I'm not traumatic triggered, but no, I actually remember now. They were coming over the following week, so maybe part of that pressure of like, oh, I'm like almost at breaking point here, and I don't know what to do. They're coming next week. Maybe that's why I booked the doctor's appointment or whatever. But I was signed off when they came over to see me the following week, I think. Right, and we went for lunch. They believed that I was, on annual leave or whatever, and I just told them, actually, guys, I'm signed off. I've been having stomach issues, and I went to the doctor last week, and he signed me off with stress, and it's to do with what I want for my career, and that I feel like I'm at a kind of sticking point. There was another couple of kind of practical options, with the job and the practice that I won't go into, but they knew about that as well, and they were like, look, immediately supportive. If you need a break to figure out what you actually want, and whether this practice is somewhere to stay for the next 6 months while you figure that out, or whether you need a clean break, or whether you need to, do something else entirely, that's fine. And they also said, like, oh, this isn't uncommon in our family. Your aunt had problems with her stomach related to stress in work when she was in her 20s. I was like, oh, cool. Solidarity. So
you could have told me that first, couldn't you, Mike?
Yeah, I know. But it just helped. They were immediately supportive. I had built it up in my head that, this was going to be a big revelation. I was going to disappoint them and blah, blah, blah. And also echoes of my teens. I'm gay. I came out to them when I was 18, 19, and I had that same pressure feeling, and immediately it was fine. They were supportive, and there was a little bit of an adjustment period, but I'd kind of like lived in my head before with this big problem I thought I had. And actually the lesson is just talk to people about it. Just, share it.
Yeah.
And we find that every day, don't we, as vets? You have this client phone call hanging over you. Yeah, Mrs. Smith's really, really angry about something, wants a phone call. And I used to think, oh, okay, what I'll do is I'll give her a buzz later, because I can't face it now. I'll give her a buzz later when it's quiet, when I've done other stuff. And you fester all day, don't you? Think, oh God, I've got to phone her. Oh,
and then you sneak out and you say, I'll do it in the morning.
Absolutely. 9 times out of 10, you phone them straight away. And within 20 minutes, you've finished the conversation, all is well with the world, and you go back to doing things. If you don't phone them, or you wait till the end of the day, then your stomach's playing up.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's called swallowing the frog, right?
The frog.
Yes.
Have you heard of that?
Oh, yeah.
The frog is there, ribbiting away.
Now, who
just
was
swallow
it?
the frog and then it's done.
Yeah. One of my guests said that.
Yeah.
Swallowing the frog, yeah.
As long as it's not a poison arrow one, we're okay.
No.
So tell us about the Ealing Wildlife Group.
Yeah, so that kind of happened quite like organically, I suppose. I think I mentioned I had my own business in vet school. So yeah, I'd say I'm like into flora and fauna. So when I was in agricultural college in Essex, a lot of my friends were doing horticulture and garden design and things, and I just got a weekend job with one of them, and then a summer job doing landscaping and garden design with them. So when I moved back to Dublin, I needed some beer money, didn't I? So I set up a little garden design and gardening business on the side for weekend work. And when I left clinics, I decided to hand in my notice at that clinic, and I decided I'm going to take an absolute break from veterinary medicine for a little while.
Okay.
I went to see my friend who'd moved to Australia for about a month, and then I came back and I advertised on Facebook, is anyone interested in having a garden makeover with wildlife in mind? That's my kind of specialty.
Right.
And I ended up getting 2 really big jobs actually, and set up a business on the side, and did 2 big jobs. Took me about 4 or 5 months for both of the jobs, and that was the break I needed to get away and think about what I want to do next.
Right.
And then started locuming again, because I was like, right, I still want to keep my hand in and still want to think about things. So I started locuming as a vet part-time, and talked to a few recruiters. I think winter came and the garden business dried up a little bit in terms of demand.
Not literally, it froze up and flooded.
Yeah, it froze. And yeah, I got talking to a couple of recruiters. I got the job with Tails.com after talking to their CEO when they're in very much the startup phase. And I thought, if I'm going to do nutrition and I'm going to use my vet degree in industry, I would prefer to do something that was closer to my animal science degree, nutrition, husbandry, that kind of thing, than to go into kind of, dare I say, and no offense to anyone that works in that, but something that I would find quite boring in a big pharma company or something. So what they were doing with kind of technology meets nutrition, I was really kind of excited by. Went and started there, and then did not know what to do with myself, because I was like, people go to work and like at 9 a.m. sit down at a desk, and then on 5 or 6 p.m. they're like home, and the rest of their time is their own, and nothing dies on their watch. And you're not bringing that stressful conversation that you have to have with Mrs. Smith in the morning home with you either. So I just suddenly had this free time, and I won a veterinary competition at Vet Times by answering some silly question, and I got a £250 Amazon voucher, and I was like, do you know what I'm going to buy? A camera. Bought a camera, started wandering around kind of the green spaces in Ealing, and thought, I've never noticed this. I've lived here for kind of 4 years, and I've never noticed how much nature there is around the place. There's absolutely tons. And started taking photos. And the lady on the second wildlife garden that I designed, she's an absolute hoot. She's a good friend of mine still. She tagged me on a neighborhood Facebook forum where some journalist was asking, is it true that the Hanwell Viaduct in West London has the largest bat colony in the south of England? And that's down the road from where I lived. And she tagged me and was like, Sean McCormack knows about bats. He's a real nature guy. And I just said, I don't know if there's bats at the viaduct. I presume there is. I doubt it's the biggest colony in the south of England. That's a bit bizarre. And I went down there and had a look, and I got a guy from London Bat Trust to come and do a little bat survey with some detector equipment. And I just said on that thread, I was like, there are some bats there, like there's not huge numbers or whatever, but it's quite interesting. There's like 6 or 7 species that he's detected there, or 6 species. If I was to buy a bat detector, would people be interested in coming on a bat walk this summer if I arranged them? And over 400 people said yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
God.
So I posted it on 2 of the neighborhood groups, and 400 responses. People were like, I'd love to do a bat walk. That would be amazing. Da, da, da. So Ealing Wildlife Group literally was born from, how am I going to organize to like get out with locals in the evening and this summer and show them some bats and how cool they are. And that's where it was born. So it's just grown.
Fantastic.
It's grown into a community kind of conservation group. Initially was just a Facebook group, and then we've become a constituted community group. And we've partnered a lot with the local kind of parks team, council rangers, and done a lot of collaborative conservation projects with them. So it's grown massively. We're nearly 5,000 people now.
Wow.
And do you want to talk to us about beavers at this stage?
We can definitely talk. We can skip ahead to beavers for sure. I mean, we've had a 2016 to 2022 is quite the journey, and we've kind of focused on lots of different species. But the big exciting news right now is that we are putting in an application to Natural England to reintroduce beavers to Ealing in an enclosed closed trial. So we won't be just setting them free into the Brent and waving them goodbye down to the Thames. We're going to actually
Ealing High Street, off they go.
Off the Broadway onto the central line.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have that reaction where they're like, what? Like, I thought beavers were these like wild landscape creatures and things, but actually urban beavers exist across Europe and North America. Munich, Berlin, Vancouver. But yeah, like, I mean, beavers are only gone from the UK 400 years, which in kind of evolutionary times is the blink of an eye, really. And we're just not used to...
longer than the dodo.
Yeah. But we're just not used to having them around or what they do. And, you know, there's a lot of hesitation from anything new in the environment when it comes to wildlife. But yeah, we're putting in this application, and basically it's about, I guess, 3 things. One is seeing how we can kind of integrate and interact with beavers in an urban setting, because whether we like it or not, beavers are on the way back in Britain, and they will emerge in cities and towns, and we need to understand how to live alongside them. So that's the one big thing, is like, actually, let's do this before it becomes a problem. Let's do it so we can see how we can interact with beavers. And actually, most urban beaver populations are not very problematic at all. And the second one is for kind of studying their habitat improvements and biodiversity improvements with them. We've reintroduced harvest mice, which are Britain's smallest rodent already, to Ealing. We believe they've been gone for 30 or 40 years, but with the rangers and the kind of different management of our green space, we've good habitat for them now. And we were thinking next on the list would be try and reintroduce water voles.
Ealing cats will love you.
I know. We're putting all the rodents back, right?
So we've got some water voles around near us in Arundel.
Have you? Arundel, yeah, the WWT reserve, right?
Yeah, they're beautiful. Yeah. Well, they did the population dipped for a while because they think that weasels or
mink, was it?
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah. So I mean, we thought about doing that, but that's very kind of labor intensive. But actually, if we bring beavers back first, beavers create the perfect wetlands and ecosystems for water voles and a lot of other things. And one of the big threats to water voles is mink, North American mink, that have been released from fur farms, and they're designed to eat muskrats in North America, but they can eat water voles here, and water voles have no kind of defense from them. So putting beavers back first.
Although if they put an extra thick overcoat and their galoshes on, then the minks can't spot them so well.
Yeah, suits of armor.
Yeah. I've read Wind in the Willows, so I know that Ratty is a water vole.
Ratty is actually a vole, yeah.
He always wears his galoshes.
Yeah.
So that no one can recognise his footprints.
We'll take that into account in our water vole reintroduction project for sure. But yeah, that's one of the reasons put water voles back once beavers have created this new kind of elaborate wetland system. And then the third reason is the kind of human benefits. So the area that we're planning to enclose and have them on for 5 years and study the effects, it kind of is a sunken area, and downstream of it is a high flood risk area. So actually, by putting beavers on there and them damming the systems and creating wetland, they create much more water absorption capacity, and they'll hold water. And the theory is that they will reduce flood risk downstream in kind of flash flood and road runoff events, and they'll also improve the water quality coming out of that site. So yeah, we want to see what urban communities, are like in engaging with rewilding and kind of nature-based solutions and things. So,
do you see a time where you might sort of move into this area full time? Could you earn your living doing this stuff?
There's the difficulty. I mean, at this stage, I would love to. I'd love to just at some point in the next kind of 5 years, if I could.
We
not
better
hang
not
up
tell
my
your
vet
boss
hat,
at sales.com about this, but
they
we'll
know
keep
the
it
track
quiet.
I'm on. They're fine. I love working at sales.com, but I think they know as well as I do. I've talked to them about it that I do want to move more into kind of conservation and things. But yeah, the bills still need to be paid, and unfortunately, the conservation industry is quite tricky to kind of make a living in as well. So I've got a quite nice balance at the moment. Ealing Wildlife Group is like a second job, but it's one that I get a lot of energy and a lot of joy from. And the big thing about it is it's built an amazing community of people. Like, we get a lot of our work done with volunteers who come along and just absolutely love getting stuck in and involved. And some of them, weren't into nature before. Some of them lost their joy of nature when they became adults, and they're now realizing, wow, I didn't realize all this nature was on my doorstep in London. And we're lucky in Ealing to live in such a green borough. We've loads and loads of amazing green spaces. So we got some slagging off when we announced the Beaver project. People were like, where are they going to go? Ealing Broadway? And we showed them actually where they're going to go. And it's just this incredible wetland and woodland system in the north of the borough.
And then you don't think it's going to be there, do you? I mean, you drive through Ealing and you think, well, other than Cooley, this amazing supermarket you can buy any nationality of food from. What is there to see?
Well, this is the thing. You're driving through the very centre of urban Ealing. You wouldn't know, but you go to the north of the borough, north of the A40, up to Horson Hill and things, and you could be out in the countryside anywhere in the country.
You really could.
It is amazing, yeah.
And it used to be truly rural, didn't it?
It was. Horson and Meadows was the meadows where they made hay for the horses of London and brought them in on the canal. Brought boatloads of hay in to feed the horses that were part of the trade in London. So it's definitely the workhorse of London back in the day. Yeah,
quite literally.
Yeah,
literally. Yeah. And you mentioned quite a lot of rewilding projects in your podcast, in your video podcast, didn't you? The Goshawks, I was particularly keen on watching that episode.
Yeah, so I do kind of a video series, I guess, occasionally. There's nothing structured about it. It's just occasionally I'll be doing something that might be of interest to people and I'll put it on YouTube. But the podcast itself, I set up just before lockdown happened, actually. And then during lockdown, I thought, well, I'm stuck here on my own, so I might as well do something productive. And started interviewing people that I knew or had come across in the kind of rewilding and conservation space. So it's called Sean's Wildlife. It's on all podcast apps and Spotify and everything. Don't want to compete with yours or anything, but it's different interests.
It's a big enough pot. We can
absolutely. Sure we can all share, and if any of our listeners are interested in any of the subjects that Sean's been talking about, then check it out. What's it called again, Sean?
Sean's Wildlife.
Sean's Wildlife.
So a lot of it is based on rewilding, and there's a few kind of more animal welfare, and there's even a few kind of veterinary related episodes on there as well. It's a bit of a kind of broad strokes of all the things I do. But yeah, I think the kind of theme of rewilding in the last kind of 5-10 years has really, really taken off. It's a word now that a lot of people are familiar with, and there's a bit of confusion around it,
and increasingly excited about it. I mean, obviously, rewilding always conjures up images of wolves roaming free in the Scottish Highlands again.
Well, I've just had a fox walk through our front garden.
Did you?
Yeah. I use the rewilding when I get told, isn't it time we cut the lawn? And I, no, we'll rewild that bit.
Rewild your lawn. Mow May should be no mow summer. Yeah. It's now a hay meadow, Mike, right?
But the croquet lawn will be ruined, Sean. What are you talking about?
But you can make the croquet lawn within the meadow. You don't need to mow the whole thing.
Maybe. We'll see.
Leave messy margins. That's what nature needs.
Oh, I like that.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. Well, that's my excuse anyway. Why I said, you haven't done the strimming for a while. No. Messy margins. This year.
Yeah. Pollinators need it.
Absolutely.
Stuff.
So now, taking rewilding to the next obvious stage, dodos and woolly mammoths. Do you have any views on them? Because it's looking like it might become a reality, isn't it?
Yeah. What do they call it? They call that de-extinction.
Yes.
So the rewilding Puritans would say that, that's something totally different, and maybe it's wildly fantastical and it undermines what they're actually trying to do, and it's too far or whatever. I think one of the criticisms of rewilding, when it comes to rewilding, covers a lot of different things. It is allowing nature and natural process to come back, and part of rewilding is reintroducing lost species, whether it's locally extinct things like harvest mice in Ealing, or whether it's bigger, more iconic species like beavers or lynx, or dare I say wolves.
I was hoping you were going to say wolves and bears.
The big sexy animals.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons I went to Slovenian Alps is they have lynx, bears and wolves there.
Yeah.
Did I see them? No. De-extinction, I think, look, there's a hell of a lot of resources that I think maybe could be spent better on improving and saving what we have than trying to bring back long extinct species with biotechnology and things. It's like the race to the moon, I'm like, or to other planets, like the amount of money being spent on these.
I know, but there will always be people who'll be able to quote figures and say, yes, but if it wasn't for that, then we wouldn't know about the ores that we're going to get from them. Or, they're facilitators, aren't they? These people who can't be like that.
Yeah,
it is the way, but it will happen because people want it to happen.
Yeah,
and it's a bit like the Jeff Goldblum saying, isn't it, from the first Jurassic Park? We were so caught up in the whether we could, we didn't think whether we should.
Yeah. In veterinary medicine, don't we say just because you can doesn't mean you should, right?
Yeah.
Things, so.
Yeah. Do you think that saber-toothed tigers and woolly mammoths will be able to use the narrow corridors that we're trying to build to join up these little pockets of wild habitat? I'm not sure they will.
I don't think our margins are quite messy enough for those species.
I want to learn, because I've seen a photograph of you with a robin on your hand.
Oh, yeah.
I want to learn how you did that.
That's very easy, guys. There's one very simple secret to that trick. I've done it loads of times with lots of robins.
On your fingers?
No. It's mealworms.
Yes.
Mealworms.
So mealworms are basically like crack to robins.
Yeah.
So if you have a robin in your garden, robins are, very tame of garden birds. And the reason for that, do you know about why UK robins are the gardener's friend?
No.
In Europe, on the continent, they are quite a shy woodland species, and they follow around wild boar rootling in the earth. And basically, we have replaced that proxy for wild boar with our garden shovels or spades digging in the garden. The English robins, UK robins, basically see a large mammal turning earth, and they're hardwired to take advantage of that opportunity and feed on the earth that's left behind. So our garden robins almost are treating us as wild boar. So if you have a garden robin and you're out in the garden quite a bit, just get a little pot of live mealworms or live waxworms, keep them in your pocket and just throw them down for the robin occasionally, and they'll associate you with them. And then gradually you can just throw them closer and closer, and the robin is very bold. It'll come in and eventually you'll just take them off your hand. I've done that in like the space of 2 or 3 days, sometimes with robins.
Right. I assume you're just sort of singing that Disney song.
I am basically Snow White, but I also use mealworms.
I didn't want to say.
Yeah.
So
try it.
I'm going to. I've got probably 3. We're sort of at the junction of sort of like 3 territories.
Yeah.
And the 3 males will take it in turns to come into the garden and take the feed and the dried mealworms that I put out for them. And sometimes they'll sort of get reasonably close, and then they'll just both back off again.
Yeah.
So I've got a perfect opportunity. Yeah. Okay. I will set myself that challenge.
Challenge accepted, eh?
Yeah. Challenge accepted. Thanks for that, Sean.
The other interesting snippet.
Yeah.
The other interesting snippet about garden robins. Sorry, I'm going off on a bird tangent now.
No.
We don't mind.
We often think, don't we, that if the bird is there singing, it must be the male bird. But actually, robins are quite unique because the female will sing in wintertime as well. So if you see the 2 of them singing together, it's not necessarily your adjoining territories. It could be a male and female, and a third male maybe are singing. So quite unusual for songbirds that they both sing.
Yes.
Brilliant stuff.
Amazing.
What else can we learn?
We've got a couple of robins nesting in our garage.
What else?
actually.
I'll tell you what. Sean. I don't suppose you've come across Veterinary Ramblings. Now we ramble off. I mean, we've been talking about all sorts of stuff. That's why it's called Veterinary Ramblings. We just let it go. But have you come across 60-second CPD?
I have heard of it. Yeah. And I had a little think about, well, how could I add value here?
Oh, hang on. It's all very well me keying up 60-second CPD. I haven't got the clock.
You got get your clock. Would you have a little 60-second CPD for us?
I have a 60-second CPD. Yeah, I talked to my friend and said, what am I going to talk about? Should I talk about beavers? And she said, talk about something more applicable to your clinicians. So I'm going to talk to you about bats in practice.
Bats?
So I don't know, have you ever had bats being handed in by a member of the public?
Normally brought in a shoebox, aren't they?
I have my rabies vaccine and license to deal with bats. Yeah.
So I think we all get bats in, so it's a good maybe topic for a 60-second CPD, you know? Excellent.
Right. Well, in that case then, Sean McCormack, 60-second CPD on bats in practice, starting now.
Cool, thanks. So bats, they get handed in by the public occasionally. A lot of the vet team are like, what the hell do we do with these? I think the first thing to say about them is they are a wild animal, so any wild species, we want to be very careful not to stress them out and tip them over the edge. Bats are also very secretive and they're nocturnal. So keeping them in the dark, observing them before handling them is really, really important. Recording where they came from and getting the client's details is important because they are very faithful to sites. They need to go back where they came from. Health and safety. Bats do have or can carry two viruses, lyssaviruses, which are rabies viruses, European bat lyssavirus 1 and 2. So you need to be careful and you need to wear gloves whenever you're handling them. It's very rare that they transmit it, but it can happen. Never handle them by picking them up by the wings. The wings are extremely delicate. You often don't even need to x-ray if you're going to examine for breaks or tears in the wing. And I think ultimately just think about, can they go back to the wild? Would they be long-term captive? And is it ethical to treat them? Euthanasia is a positive welfare outcome as well. I know I'm over time, but get in touch with the Bat Conservation Trust and they'll put you in touch with a local bat rehabilitator.
Fantastic. That's not over time, that's additional information. So
that's time for questions, Sean.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
So who was that you tagged on that at the end? The
Bat Conservation Trust.
Yeah, yep.
And on their website, if you look it up, they have a really, really good downloadable section on rehabilitating and treating bats for veterinary professionals. So do have a look at that.
Yeah. And you mentioned bat detectors earlier. And they're not expensive. They're even cheaper if you get a kit and make one yourself.
Yeah. Have you been on a bat walk or used a bat detector?
Yes, I have. I have both, and it's great fun. Just little gizmos that adjust the frequency down, so the frequency modulators.
Yeah.
And so, because bats obviously speak a lot higher than we can hear.
Yeah.
So you just adjust the dial and you hear all these little high-pitched things. It's either leprechauns or bats. One of the two.
Yeah.
If it's leprechauns and you turn the pitch down, all you'll hear is, I think there's a rainbow over here.
Well, we're not allowed to tell you the frequency of leprechauns. You see, that's a trade secret. Yeah.
So 9 times out of 10 is going to be bats.
Yeah, it is good fun. I mean, I do bat walks, believe it or not, for Airbnb experiences. So I bring tourists and locals from London out on a Friday night, and we go out on Hampstead Heath, give them all bat detectors, teach them how to ID bats. And honestly, the reviews and the ratings that come in, people are like, this was brilliant. And I think it's because it marries technology with natural history, with going out after dark and hearing something that you'd never ever hear before.
Yeah, right in the heart of London.
Isn't it?
Right in the heart of London. And we frequently get 6 species, if not 7, in the space of an hour and a half there. And we also get them feeding low over the lakes and the ponds there and in torchlight. And people just have never seen a bat before, seen one flitting by in the dark and have no idea what they're doing or where they are, how many they are, because it's completely silent without these detectors. So
stuff.
Wow, I don't know where to go next. I think probably.
We need. Have you done a CPD certificate?
I was going to say, I think maybe we should recognise that actually we've had an amazing CPD session and go to the certificate, because it just so happens I do have a certificate. And it says, here it
Oh,
is.
right.
It says,
Oh, wow.
there's
Go on.
a certificate of nature and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant.
This certifies that we all get ill, regardless of species, even sharks. So you mentioned One Health earlier, so go One Health. And what have we got on here? There's a little missile thrush, I think it is, eating a worm.
Oh, yeah.
Now there's a wild tapir in Scotland.
I thought it was a haggis.
No,
we did
seemingly.
we
He
did
sent
see
this
some.
photo to me the other day, and the frustration is that the tapir actually photo bombed him because tucked away just behind his left hind there is actually a wild haggis.
Okay.
And he didn't spot that. He just went,
Didn't
"Oh, look
spot
at
it.
this photo of a wild tapir," and he missed the haggis completely.
It's a real
Tapir that wants the limelight, yeah.
missing completely. Here's a little tadpole.
Yeah.
I still get amazed by tadpoles. Just watching how those little legs develop. It's amazing. And I believe this bumblebee is a Bombus magnix. It's one of my favourite bumblebees. We have over the other side an orchid. I think it's a bee orchid, wild bee orchid, in the locality, and some wild edible sea urchins.
Oh,
I thought they were hedgehogs. Sorry.
They look a bit like hedgehogs, don't they?
yeah. Part of CPD, of course, is reflection.
What is it? What do I have to do?
It's just to set a reflection question for our listeners to reflect on something that we've covered tonight.
Well, they're having a little glass of something later on.
Yeah, just get them to reflect on what we've learned tonight, because we've learned a hell of a lot.
Huge amounts about beavers, bats, and
all
ealing.
sorts. Go on.
All right. I won't bore you with more nature facts. I think the big thing for me, and I talked about it tonight more than I thought I was going to, is whatever your profession, whatever your path in life, if it's not working out for you, if you're putting pressure on yourself to make it work and things aren't really going to plan, like try if you can, if you're lucky enough to be able to take a little bit of time back, a little bit of a step back and reanalyze things. And most importantly, talk to your friends and family about it, and go if you can and seek, someone to talk to who's experienced in this, a career counselor or something. Vet Life turned my kind of experience around there and said, there's loads you can do with this, and let's talk about that, and here's some issues. And you're not having personal trouble, you're having career trouble, and it's getting into your personal life. And that was the biggest help for me. So I think if you're struggling, you're not happy, don't feel like you're trapped. Talk to people about it, and there are ways you can change it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah,
really good.
That's really good. Sean, it's been an absolute pleasure meeting you tonight.
You guys too. Yeah, thank you.
Really, really thank you so much for your time and your trouble. And to our listeners and viewers, if you've enjoyed what you've heard, don't forget to hit subscribe, because it really helps. And like, and reach out to us as well if there's something you want us to cover, or a particular topic or subject. Let us know. Ask us the questions, and we'll do what we can to accommodate.
Please do. And there's a big pool, so look at Sean's podcast as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't forget to check that out. Sean McCormack, in the words of another famous Irish comedian in that case, may your dog go with you.
May your dog go with you.
Thanks a lot, guys.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much
Cheers.
indeed, Sean.